Now, to do their part for the new green economy, General Motors introduced a new line of electric vehicles. When the Chevy Volt was ready for release, I attended their press conference.
So these electric vehicles are ready for public consumption, and we're ready with the infrastructure, with the rates, with the communications.
I am extremely grateful to be here today, and in fact this is a chance for me to say thank you more formally. The Chevy Volt is upstairs. We'll be able to take a look at it.
We got about 1,000 photos.
Yeah.
This is the plug. It's as simple as that.
The batteries are in the trunk?
No, the battery in this particular design is a T-shape right down the center and across the back seat area. Because everybody thought we killed the electric vehicle. No, we didn't. It's alive and well.
So what's charging the batteries right now? What's the source of
Well,
electricity?
here, it's coming from the building.
I mean, is it, what's our mix of power?
Oh, actually Lansing feeds the building.
What's that?
Lansing feeds power to the building. So I don't know.
They're,
I bet you they're a bit of coal. Well, they're heavy on natural gas, aren't they?
right now the car's charging off of your grid.
Right. It would be charging off our grid, which is about 95% coal.
How long do you think it'll be before there's a solar and wind powered grid?
Oh, golly.
To suggest that all of the power used for these cars will be generated from wind and solar in the very near future would not be correct. In fact, we're talking about charging these up at night, so there won't be any solar at that time. So we're down to wind, and very often at night the wind does fall off. So
I don't think coal is bad. The what?
A big battle. Mountaintop removal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's got lovely BTUs. It's got lovely
Very
energy
dense, isn't
value.
it? Yeah.
How do you burn it more cleanly? I mean, do you see natural gas getting bashed?
we will be delivering power based on natural gas very shortly. And even with that mix, we intend to use biofuels if we can.
You got any
Oh,
support?
the environmental groups are extremely supportive.
We did install the state's largest solar array at my company, the Board of Water and Light. It's just down the street from here, a few miles, if you want to take a look at it. What outfit are you with?
New World Media, we're doing a segment on the renewable energy.
Oh, excuse me, I gotta go for a
sorry.
second, but thanks.
But is it possible for machines made by industrial civilization to save us from industrial civilization? In environmental leader Bill McKibben's home state of Vermont, the Green Mountain State, a site was being cleared for the installation of wind turbines. A group of citizens was concerned about how the construction might affect the mountains they love. I joined them for a tour.
It's going to be 21 turbines.
21.
Yeah.
On this
In this project. Yeah. The estimate was maybe there would be 3 full-time jobs.
If the goal is to try to make Vermont the leader in climate change, I appreciate looking to the sky in the hopes that we can do that. But more importantly, I'm personally looking at the ground thinking this is not the kind of legacy I'd want to leave to my kids. When I was a kid, we'd go hiking in these woods. We would be able to drink from the waters down the hill here, and now you have to question that. And how long are these towers supposed to last?
20-something years. 20.
I know, it's just,
Oh, wait a minute, you're
it's a
kidding me.
nanosecond.
20 years.
Oh, it's a nanosecond in the time of energy.
Does anybody consider that this is mountaintop removal for wind instead of coal?
Yeah, and we've even had people say if you can do mountaintop removal in Kentucky and West Virginia for coal, then it's about time that the rest of the country shared in the mountaintop removal too.
Hello. I think they're going to tell us to move there.
The thing is you've got to have a fossil fuel power plant backing it up and idling 100% of the time. Because if you cycle up or cycle down as the demand on the wind comes through, then you actually generate a bigger carbon footprint than if you just ran it straight.
Do you ever go to things where they just go, well, that's not true, it doesn't matter, we're going to have the smart grid?
Doesn't make any difference. You still got to have it idling, because let's just say the wind stopped right now. Just stopped for an hour. You've got to have that power.
What do you do?
I'm a environmental health and safety consultant. I usually work with businesses to help them do things, but I would never work with scum like this.
You didn't get me on camera doing this, did you? Not being judgmental or trying to play God, but we've got to deal with population growth and sustainable resources. We've all got to cut back. All this energy is supposedly going to heat a water park. We can find unique and different ways to waste energy. This is not a Vermont company. I mean, Green Mountain Power will be bought out by Gas Metro, and Gas Metro is owned by Enbridge, as I understand it, which is a big company, resource company in Canada, which is exploiting the tar sands, that wants to build the XL pipeline.
They're all in bed together.
It's still, we don't know the whole story.
Have you asked Mr. McKibben to come see that?
He thinks anything renewable is good.
Yeah.
So that's what I've heard people say.
This is...
I'm in a strange position. I'm against our addiction to fossil fuels and have long been a fan of green energy. But everywhere I encountered green energy, it wasn't what it seemed.
This is like a perpetual energy battery.
And where do you get the hydrogen from?
The hydrogen, hydrogen is sourced from any hydrocarbon material. So you can get it from natural gas, you can get it from any petroleum or oil-based product.
Ethanol plants also seem to have a secret ingredient.
This is the most productive farmland in the world, and we're not that far west of the biggest coal mines in the world as well. So bring the two together and get an ethanol plant.
Great. So ethanol was reliant on two things: a giant fossil fuel-based industrial agricultural system to produce corn, and even more fossil fuels in the form of coal. All of this in the attempt to replace fossil fuels? It was enough to make my head explode. I was getting the uneasy feeling that green energy was not going to save us. And I wasn't the only one.
I've counted something like 25 different alternative energy options. So surely among all of those, there are enough sources of energy to keep us living basically the way we are in perpetuity. That's not the reality. You know, we're getting, in some cases, no energy from these potential options.
Richard York of the University of Oregon published a study in the journal Nature in which he posed the question, do non-fossil energy sources actually replace fossil fuels?
Well, we implicitly assume often the substitute pushes out the thing you wanted to substitute for. What you find is nations that add non-fossil energy sources do not seem to see a particular suppression of fossil fuels.
That's pretty mind-blowing. We've got billions of dollars being spent, and green energy is not even replacing fossil fuels.
They don't even know that that's a question. Yes.
Ozzie Zenner, a visiting scholar at UC Berkeley and Northwestern University, was asking some of the same questions.
I mean, I thought that solar and wind were probably very good solutions. I mean, it wasn't really even that long ago.
One of the most dangerous things right now is the illusion that alternative technologies like wind and solar are somehow different from fossil fuels. Well, I hear a lot of the times that solar cells are made out of sand.
Have you ever thought about solar panels? The main ingredient that makes them work is silicon or sand.
This is the raw material chips are made of, sand.
They don't use sand at all.
So they use, I'll show you what they... So this is one of the ingredients. It's actually mined quartz.
Spruce Pine, North Carolina, regarded as the finest source of high-purity quartz in the world for semiconductor, solar, and communication applications.
But you can't use sand because sand has too many impurities. So you start with a very high-quality quartz and a very high-quality coal. And then you put those two together into an arc furnace and you melt them.
The quartz is then melted with coal in a large furnace at temperatures of up to 1,800 degrees.
So you need more coal to do that. So I get another coal out. So that's when we melt these together, we get silicon metal and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide just goes off, and you got rid of the carbon, you're left with silicon metal. This is not clean coal.
Not clean coal.
Ozzy Zenner said it was an illusion that renewables were replacing coal or any fossil fuel. Environmental groups continued telling a different story.
We've already seen more than 25% of the U.S. coal fleet has already either retired or is on a schedule to retire.
Coal plants were closing, but Ozzy explained that well-meaning people were being misled.
NV Energy is now going to go ahead and shut down the plant and go with renewable. One of the largest solar plants, and that's going to happen right behind me.
Since you can't replace a coal plant with solar, they're actually replacing the coal plant with 2 natural gas plants. And natural gas is a fossil fuel. This is the Las Vegas cogen natural gas plant. This is one of the facilities that's replacing the coal plant that's being shut down. This is the Sun Peak generating facility. This is the second natural gas plant that was used to replace the coal plant. And you hear the same story in Iowa.
Instead of using energy generated by coal-fired power plants, the solar farm will now avoid about 2.1 million pounds of carbon pollution.
But then they're building a larger natural gas plant. This is a 650 megawatt natural gas plant. That's 4 times more megawatts than the coal plant over there that it's replacing. And they're doing the same thing in North Carolina, which was the subject of that Years of Living Dangerously series.
Duke Energy operates a coal plant right outside of Asheville that is the biggest source of climate pollution in western North Carolina. And we are working to retire that plant and replace it with clean energy.
But what they don't tell you is that we're also building a larger natural gas facility.
So we'll be retiring a 2-unit, 376 megawatt coal plant. We'll invest $750 million to build a state-of-the-art natural gas plant.
When Michael Brune stands up and talks about clean energy, he's using solar cells and wind turbines.
This is the new world, 100% clean energy.
When Michael Bloomberg stands up and says cleaner energy, he's talking about natural gas.
Create cleaner energy, solar, wind, and natural gas.
In fact, the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign actually coincides with one of the largest expansions of fossil fuel production that we've ever pulled off, most of that being natural gas.
Ozzy's assertion that renewables were not replacing fossil fuels, if true, would upend all of our assumptions about green energy and what was going to save us. What would happen if I asked the same question to industry insiders? Like, where do solar panels come from?
Well, you have to start with a mine.
Or, what's stopping us from running the world on 100% solar and wind?
Well, intermittency is one of the major challenges with
grid stability.
The sun's everywhere except when it's not there.
When we add solar cells or wind turbines to a grid, do we get to shut off a coal plant?
That's certainly the goal. The problem is, or the difference is that renewables are intermittent. All of a sudden a cloud cover could come over and your solar generation could drastically decrease. And if you don't have something else there to meet whatever the load is at that moment, then you're going to have power outages.
So we don't get to turn a fossil fuel power plant off when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing?
Well, it's not that easy. We need to be able to back up that power to keep the system steady all the time so it doesn't collapse. Most likely that's through fast-acting gas plants, but also what we call the baseload plants, either nuclear or coal, that are on all the time, but that maybe can be dialed down during the day and dialed up when demand starts rising.
Does it affect the efficiency to turn fossil fuel power plants on and off?
Oh yeah, they don't like to be dialed up and down. It does make, that's wear and tear for them.
Turning them on, turning it off, there's energy used and lost in any time. Kind of like when you turn on your car and off, you use a little extra gas to get it turned on. I do still think you have to maintain a base load of some kind.
What's the solution then?
You need energy storage.
Without storage, you can't count on it.
If you can store the energy that's created off of things that are intermittent, like solar and wind, you can store that, then you're reducing your need for a base load.
But would adding storage like batteries increase the carbon footprint?
Yeah, absolutely. In a big way, actually. And as more energy storage gets on the grid, it has a mass scale implication.
When I looked up how much battery storage there is, it was less than 0.1% of what's needed. In a couple years, they begin to degrade and need to be replaced a few years later. I learned that the solar panels don't last forever either.
Some solar panels are built to last only 10 years, so that it's not as if you get this just magic-free energy, right? I don't know that it's the solution, and here I am helping to sell the materials that would go in photovoltaics.
A new generation of technology was rising in the California desert.
What is this?
What we're using is a field of mirrors to focus sunlight onto a tower. The power plant itself, at 377 megawatts, will be the largest of its kind in the world.
This will become the biggest solar plant in the world. There's some people that look out in the desert and they see miles and miles of emptiness. I see miles and miles of a gold mine.
But this next generation had a fossil fuel secret too.
This solar facility burns natural gas pretty much every morning in order to get it started up.
How long do they have to burn it for?
Hours usually. This is the incoming natural gas for the facility. This plant would work about as well without natural gas as I would without coffee in the morning.
Or maybe how you would be without food.
Without food, yeah. They have to file for acid rain permits for nitrous oxide emissions. They have to apply for carbon offset permits because they're producing carbon dioxide here, so they have to offset that. The whole thing is built using fossil fuel infrastructure, from the concrete to the steel to the mirrors to the backing on the mirrors. The sun is renewable, but the solar arrays are not.
Oh, come on. There's got to be something renewable. Glass is renewable.
Glass is not renewable.
Iron's renewable. Aluminum, that's renewable. I recycle my soda cans. I know it's renewable.
Yeah, the problem with all of these materials is that it takes an incredible amount of energy to mine and process all of the materials that go into building something like this. You use more fossil fuels to do this than you're getting benefit from it. You would have been better off just burning the fossil fuels in the first place instead of playing pretend.
That green energy has nothing to do with fossil fuels is apparently a story only meant for you and me. Here is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speaking to oil and gas company insiders.
It's a combination solar gas plant. It's a turbine that we just take from a gas plant, suspended from a big scaffolding, a tower, and surrounded by giant mirrors in the desert. The plants that we're building, the wind plants and the solar plants, are gas plants.
What kind of game is being played here? I mean...
Well, we're basically just being fed a lie. For instance, you'll hear about Germany running on wind and solar.
35% right now.
50% of their power.
There are days this past summer when the Germans were generating 80% of their power from the sun.
But Germany is still Europe's largest consumer of coal.
Aber wenn in dieser Region die meiste Kohle gefördert wird, dann ist ja auch hier der größte CO2-Ausstoß.
Only a small fraction of their energy actually comes from wind and solar. In fact, Germany just built a large terminal to import natural gas from the United States. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, when he announced his Gigafactory battery plant, he said it would power itself with wind and solar energy.
Through a combination of geothermal, wind, and solar, it will produce all the energy that it needs.
But in fact, it has lines connecting it to the same electrical grid that we're all connected to. Electric cars, wind turbines, and solar panels use rare earth metals. And in fact, the rare earth mine is right up the street from here. In mining these deep deposits, about 90% of what they pull up out of the ground contains uranium, thorium, and low level of other radionuclides. Radioactive waste that has to be disposed of somehow. They kind of turn into a paste and spread it over the desert floor.
Well, that's good for the desert, right?
Yeah, the desert loves that. Tesla's electric cars are built with aluminum, which uses 8 times more energy to manufacture than steel. They use lithium, which also rely on toxic mining, and even more graphite, which is one of the rarest forms of carbon. In fact, the investors wanted to open several new graphite mines after Tesla announced the Gigafactory. Apple claims to be 100% renewable.
We never stop thinking about what's best for the planet. We now run Apple on 100% renewable energy. All of our facilities worldwide.
And they did chop down a forest to put up solar panels near their North Carolina plant. But they didn't disconnect it from the grid, and they can't.
Duke says energy-hungry companies like Apple can never go entirely off the grid.
They're still hooked up to our grid.
Despite all of the claims, I haven't found a single entity anywhere in the world that's running on 100% solar and wind alone.
It turns out, you don't just need fossil fuels to run a place like Ivanpah. You need the devil himself. Or in this case, themselves.
All of the mirrors that you see there are built by the Koch brothers, Guardian Glass Industry, a company that they control. Koch Carbon creates a lot of the inputs that are used to create the cement and the concrete and the steel. And not only that, they build the plants that builds polysilicon for solar cells. They have actually their own solar line called Solar Molex. From every step of the process, the Koch brothers are there.
But they're the evil doers.
Yeah, the funny part is that when you criticize solar plants like this, you're accused of working for the Koch brothers. That's the idiocy in all of this. This absolutely cannot extend civilization's life. This relies on the most toxic and industrial processes that we've ever created.